Convergent science is bringing together people from many disciplines to work on the same project. It's actually not a new concept in industry, but it's an emerging concept in academia, where traditionally researchers have worked in disciplinary silos, maybe working on material science, maybe working on biochemistry. But truly, in the increasingly complex world, we have to bring together teams of experts and build them such that the sum of the parts is more capable than the individuals working alone. Let me give you two examples of convergent science, one from my own experience in industry and one from Monash University in the research arena. So in the early 2000s, I led a project in my own company in California, building a device used in drug discovery, a device called the Patch Express, which looked at the electrical activity in cultured cells for doing safety testing for new drugs in development. The number of people we brought together to make that work was phenomenal. We had optical engineers, we had surface and materials engineers, we had firmware, software, database engineers, we had lab technicians doing testing, and then we had scientists working on the training and information packages that would make the product a worthwhile product. Very complex, expensive machine that delivered true value for the pharmaceutical companies to whom we sold it, and we couldn't have done it without bringing a multidisciplinary team together. We converged those people onto the problem, and it worked really well. It was actually a company-changing product for us. The second example I'd like to give you is one that is being led by Monash University at the moment. It's a bionic eye. It's led by the Monash Vision Group. Terrific device. It's equivalent to a bionic ear, but it uses a different approach to other bionic eye approaches around the world. I won't go into too much detail, but basically the three components are the camera, it's the same in all devices, bionic devices, a signal processing device to convert from the camera domain to how a brain processes information. But the most interesting difference is that instead of the electrodes being put back onto the retina, they're put into the visual cortex, like under the skull, hundreds of electrodes plugged straight into the visual cortex. Now, it's not an easy project, and it's being led out of engineering, but involves neurosurgery from the Faculty of Medicine, brain-machine interface neuroscientists from the Faculty of Science. From engineering itself, of course, it's got the electronic engineers, the firmware and software engineers, and the other design engineers. From our Faculty of Architecture, it's got industrial design doing the actual prosthetic design. We've got people from psychology working on this, and we've got three corporate partners working on packaging, hermetic sealing, signal processing, just all sorts of things, and international as well as Australian. Any piece of that equation that wasn't contributing, and the whole thing would just sink down and not be nearly as effective. Absolutely impossible to do it through a number of independent projects. Now, during those processes of development in both those projects, even on the corporate one, we actually published papers because we were doing some fundamental development and research, patents and papers. During the development of the Vision project, our neuroscientists, our engineers, the researchers at our university, they're still doing fundamental research. They're still publishing papers, but it's all focused on a product, on a purpose. And I think that's the most exciting thing for the researchers, to have a vision of what you can do that is transformational, and then all work together to create that product. I call it product-driven research, but it is part of convergent science. A lot of people think that there's a deep conflict between basic research, blue sky research if you like, and applied research. And there's a lot of discussion in the papers today. And for some reason it's seen as two camps, whereas with convergent science it's all one and the same. And that's how it should be. They should not be seen as being mutually exclusive. So when you think about the impact of convergent science approaches to human health, I tend to see it not as the core traditional development of medicines, which of course is important, and through nanotechnology and other combinations will be enhanced. But I'm thinking about a variety of aids to human health, such as exoskeletons, prosthetics that help paraplegics to work, heart assist devices, new drug delivery devices. But there's a whole new area that's going to be starting, well actually it has started, and that's robotics and artificial intelligence. in human health. So we have a problem with the changing demographics. We've got an ageing population, not enough people to be the nurses and carers. The Japanese recognised this 20 years ago, and that's why the Honda Motor Corporation, famous for making motorbikes and cars, has been making the Asimo robot for the last 20 years to get experience. And their goal is to use the Asimo robot around the home and in hospitals to help people in need. Now, do you call that medicine? I do. It's an aspect of health sciences and medical services. Take pure software. People with dementia of some kind or other limitations, people who are born with certain limitations, they're all going to benefit from the ability of artificial intelligence to provide information, assistance and guidance to them. But it's not going to come from a software engineer sitting down and inventing it. It's going to be done by a software engineering team working with psychologists and doctors and carers, people from across the spectrum of medical and health sciences capabilities to deliver aids, mechanical aids, software aids that people actually want to use and truly benefit from. Because when you invent things in isolation, unless you're Steve Jobs, it's pretty rare that you get it right. So when you think about the education that we need to deliver at universities to produce the graduates of the future who will fit in well to convergent science environments, either in academia or in industry, it's well described by what is referred to by IBM and others as the T-shaped person, where the vertical part of the T is the depth of specialised knowledge. You can't get away without being a specialist. I know we live in a Google era, and everybody thinks you can look up everything, but you need deep, specialised knowledge to interpret and deliver on your tasks. The top of the T is the ability to collaborate with others, the ability to have the words and the knowledge to understand what others in your team are doing. So if you've got the depth represented by the T and the top of the T representing collaboration and broader knowledge, that's the kind of graduate that we're aiming to develop. The last thing we want to do is develop I-shaped peoples or dashes. When you think about the future needs in this country, we need to be replacing traditional manufacturing industries, old industries, at a pretty rapid rate. Oxford University came out with a study just about a year ago where they've estimated that 50% of the jobs that we know of and are being worked in today just won't exist 20 years from now. The rate of replacement is going to be higher than we've ever seen. But we will replace those jobs, but only by being clever. And convergent science is part of that clever approach. New technologies, well applied to the needs of the consumer. And you'll especially see that in medical devices and health. Australia already is doing very well in the medical devices arena, but we can do a lot better. And we won't do it well or better unless we are using all the tools to hand, and convergent science can be the driver of that. I think it's wonderful that the Convergent Science Network is out there doing what it does. In particular, I'm excited by the work through the Graham Clark Oration. For example, this year you had Don Ingber from the Wyss Institute. What a spectacular example of convergent science that he portrayed. A highly funded institute that is bringing together people from all sorts of disciplines, creating technology for discovering new devices and approaches to health in medicine that you wouldn't dream of if it wasn't done through convergent science. They're building like little bodies on a chip so that they can process candidate drugs and see how they will work in this safe environment rather than putting into human beings, and get a safety profile and efficacy profile. It's just stunning work that they're doing. And the fact that that is being brought to the awareness of the broader community, I think, is one of the most important things that the network can be doing.